Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a mystery that's literally hiding in plain sight every single week. Have you ever wondered why the entire world basically just stops working on Sunday? Well, it turns out there's a fascinating 2,000-year history behind our weekly day off, and it's so much more complex than just a single tradition.
Okay, let's dive into this. Why Sunday rather than, say, Monday or Tuesday? Why does human society coordinate its rest specifically on this one day of the week? It's a question that requires us to peel back centuries of history to really understand the forces that shaped our modern calendar.
You see, Sunday isn't just a religious artifact. It's actually the result of a massive 2,000-year historical snowball effect. What we're going to see today is how early religion, imperial Roman law, medieval customs, and modern labor economics all just compounded upon one another to create the weekend exactly as we know it right now.
Section 1. The Origins of Sunday. Ancient Roots and Early Rhythms.
To really get Sunday, we have to look way back to the ancient Near East. The seven-day rhythm existed long before the weekend was even a glimmer in humanity's eye. Initially, Jewish tradition established the seventh day, Saturday, as the Sabbath, a dedicated day of rest. Early Christianity inherited this seven-day rhythm, but they shifted special importance to the first day of the week, Sunday, to honor the resurrection of Jesus. But here's an absolutely crucial detail. Ordinary Christians back then didn't actually get to take the day off. They worshiped on Sunday, for sure, but they still had to go to work.
Section 2. Rome changes the rules. The empire steps in.
So, the Sunday worship came first, but a massive shift occurred when governments finally got involved. And this brings us to a critical year, AD 321. This was during the reign of Roman Emperor Constantine I. In AD 321, Constantine issued a groundbreaking law giving Sunday legal status as a day of rest. He explicitly instructed judges, urban inhabitants, and craftsmen to just stop working. Interestingly enough, though, agricultural workers were specifically exempted. Why? Well, because farming doesn't really care what day of the week it is, right? Crops need tending when the weather is right.
Now, there's a pretty common historical misconception we should clear up here, impartially. The myth is that Constantine invented Sunday worship. But the reality? Early Christians were already gathering for worship on Sundays by the 2nd century, long before Constantine was around. What Constantine actually did was transform Sunday from primarily a religious observance into a legally recognized civil day of rest throughout the Roman Empire.
What's really fascinating is how Constantine actually phrased this law. He didn't use Christian theological terms at all. He called it the Venerable Day of the Sun. He conveniently tapped into an existing Roman seven-day system that was already linked to visible planets in astronomy. And that is exactly why we still literally call it Sun's Day across multiple Germanic languages today, from English to German to Dutch. Christianity didn't invent the weekly cycle. It attached its meaning to an already established astronomical calendar.
Let's move through time and see how this builds, because it's an incredible chronological snowball. We start with the ancient seven-day week, move through those early religious traditions, and hit Constantine's legal decree. But then, as Christianity deeply embedded itself in Europe, Sunday became a massive social institution. By 1444, you have the London Common Council passing municipal laws restricting Sunday commerce. We're seeing church practice evolving into social custom, which then becomes municipal regulation, and eventually state law, setting the stage perfectly for the modern era.
Section 3. Industrialization and labor rights, from church to factory.
Then the 19th century Industrial Revolution hits, and it changes absolutely everything. Suddenly, factories are operating 6 or 7 days a week, subjecting workers to totally grueling hours. When labor reformers started arguing for a regular weekly period of rest, they didn't have to invent a new day from scratch. They utilized Sunday, because millions of people already socially recognized it as a day when work should stop. This takes us to a massive secular shift. In 1921, the International Labor Organization, or ILO, adopted a convention establishing the principle of at least 24 consecutive hours of rest for industrial workers during every 7-day period. So international organizations essentially formalized Sunday rest into a secular labor principle, ensuring workers got regular time off regardless of their personal religious beliefs.
Section 4. Building the modern weekend. The 5-day week.
Now you might be wondering at this point, well, what about Saturday? Well, for centuries, Saturday was actually just a standard working day. The 2-day weekend that we all know and love today is a surprisingly modern invention. In 1926, Henry Ford's company adopted the 5-day, 40-hour workweek. And Ford championed this not just to be nice and give people rest, but because he believed that, quote, Increased leisure could stimulate consumption and economic activity. Industrialists realized that if people had 2 full days off, they'd actually have more time to shop, travel, and spend money. This economic push really helped lock in the Monday through Friday workweek, turning Saturday and Sunday into the modern weekend.
Section 5. Not a universal holiday. Global diversity.
As we look at all this history, it's absolutely crucial to point out an important qualification. Sunday is not a universal rest day across the globe. Not at all. While Sunday is customary in much of the West due to Christian traditions, Israel centers its weekly rest on Saturday, aligning with Judaism. And in many Muslim-majority countries, Friday holds special religious significance for congregational prayer, so the weekend there might be Friday or Friday and Saturday. International labor principles explicitly respect these local religious and cultural traditions rather than trying to force a universal Sunday on everyone.
Yet, despite that diversity, Sunday really has spread far outside Christian Europe. And India is a fascinating example of how that happened. India's 1948 Factories Act institutionalized Sunday as a standard rest day, but this wasn't simply because of religion. It was actually a complex blend of British colonial administration, integration with global commerce, European traditions, and modern industrial labor law. International businesses operating on those Western Monday to Friday schedules ended up exporting the Sunday standard far, far beyond its original borders.
Section 6. The power of synchronized rest, social logic.
And that brings our explainer right into the modern day. As society is becoming increasingly secular, why did they continue to lock in on a single, unified day of rest? Like, why not just let everyone pick their own random day off? The answer lies in an economic concept called the coordination benefit. It's the amplified social and economic value created when a society synchronizes its downtime. The true value of Sunday today isn't just the act of not working. The magic happens because you're resting at the exact same time as everyone else.
So the crucial point is this: when workers, families, schools, religious institutions, and public offices all take the same day off, they operate according to the exact same weekly rhythm. This synchronized social pause allows communities to actually function. It allows families to gather and people to recreate together. If we all just took different days off, our social fabric would be entirely fragmented.
To wrap this all up, we can see that Sunday essentially holds 3 overlapping layers of meaning for us today. Step 1, the religious Sunday, rooted in ancient worship. Step 2, the historical Sunday, shaped by Emperor Constantine, medieval law, and civic rest. And Step 3, the modern Sunday, defined by secular weekly labor rest, recreation, and the family weekend. It transformed from a theological concept to a civic regulation and finally into a modern labor right. Ultimately, the modern Sunday is this incredible intersection of religion, law, labor rights, economics, and social coordination. Human societies have repeatedly recognized that continuous, unbroken work is simply unsustainable. Sunday is our beautifully complex, 2,000-year-old solution to that very human problem.
Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating final question to ponder. Is your day of rest a religious tradition or a masterpiece of social coordination? The next time you sleep in on a Sunday, remember the centuries of emperors, factory workers, and historical snowballs that made it possible. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring the history hidden right there in your everyday life.